I'm Dave Palumbo, founder of Species Nutrition. From my earliest bodybuilding days, I believed in only putting the best in my body. And that lives on in the Species Nutrition line of products. I put my name and reputation on every bottle of Species Nutrition products. If you want to be your absolute best, join the evolution.
Hey guys, we're super excited to be here at the LA Fit Expo. It's our third year in a row. And what we're going to be doing today is we're going to be launching a tasty pastry. It's a low-carb Pop-Tart. It's got 3 to 4 grams of net carbs. And we love this show. This is our best place to be in LA.
If you want to build a massive chest, you have to stop bench pressing right now.
Welcome to Heinz Senior's Coaching App. Get access to the P3AK High Intensity Training ebook and its exclusive video tutorials. Commit with Heinz's coaching right now and be provided with a year of meal plans, training programs, and more. www.p3akday.com. There is no room for the littles.
Hey, this is the Game Triple H from the WWE. You're watching RxMuscle.com, the truth in bodybuilding.
RX Television on RxMuscle.com. This is Ask Dave, better known as hashtag Ask Dave. You know the drill, 30-minute question and answer show with Dave Palumbo, whatever's on your mind, be it training, be it diet, be it supplementation, be it something related to bodybuilding or something outside of the bodybuilding realm. Of course, the Arnold Classic just about a month away, so you're starting to see a lot more progress pictures now. On our feed, we posted some recent pictures from Justin Rodriguez, from Brett Wilkin, both who seem to be very much in the mix for a top 4, top 5 placing at this upcoming Arnold Classic. We're going to go to the questions as we now bring in Dave Palumbo. The first 2 questions, of course, from the Dave Palumbo Experience app. If you haven't already done so, you can download it on the Apple Store or on Google Play. Dave, could you please explain the use of finasteride and the relationship with the prostate, dosage, and why reduce the PSA with bodybuilders? And this is up 50 years old, so I guess over the age of 50.
Yeah, obviously when you're a teenager and, your body's cranking out testosterone and some of that's converting to DHT. Dihydrotestosterone is responsible for the formation of the secondary sex characteristics in men, thickening of the jaw, deepening of the voice, and all those good things. And so hair growth on the face. But as we get older, too much DHT is not good for us anymore because it can cause the prostate to get enlarged. It can cause hair loss on your head if you're prone to it, obviously, because some people just don't lose hair on the head. Some people do. Also, acne, and stuff like that it can cause as well. So some people are very high DHT converters. I happen to be a high DHT converter, and on no anabolics. I haven't been taking anything for 6 years or something like that, aside from an occasional HCG shot, and my DHT levels would naturally be very high. So I've been on finasteride for 20 years. I've been taking it just because I'm a very high converter. I originally started taking it for hair loss. I probably should have started it before I lost my hair because I probably would have preserved some of it. But I continued taking it because I felt that it was protective of my prostate. And like I said, once I had my DNA tested, which is something that we've talked about before, testing your DNA to see what hormonal makeup you have, how you handle certain foods, I found that I'm a very high DHT converter. My genes just indicate that I have a high conversion to dihydrotestosterone, and I don't aromatize very much. So when I don't convert to estrogen, my body likes to convert to DHT. So for someone like myself, taking a finasteride is probably beneficial. Whereas other people might not be high DHT converters. They take finasteride and it kills their sex drive. It just lowers their DHT just too much. So, a lot of people, I always say the first line of defense, I send everyone to my testolyze product. Testolyze is a very high potency extract of saw palmetto it contains in there, which kind of does the same thing without annihilating your levels of DHT. And a lot of people get benefits from that. Chris Aceto just started taking it because he said his hair was thinning, and he said, holy mackerel, my hair started thickening up. My wife noticed the same thing. She was getting some hair thinning and she started taking it. So it kind of blunts DHT, but it doesn't get rid of it completely. And so I think DHT control, just like estrogen control, is something that we need to be aware of. And the only way you know if you have high DHT is to get blood work done. So you have to go, when you get your blood work done, ask your doctor to test your testosterone, your total testosterone, your free testosterone. Have them check your estrogen, have them check your DHT levels so that you know how much of your testosterone you're converting to estrogen and how much you're converting to DHT. And then you can say, hey, you know what? Maybe I need an aromatase inhibitor. Maybe I don't. Maybe I need a DHT blocker like finasteride. Maybe I can go with something like testolyze that's not quite as potent and it's not going to really lower my levels too much. And that's, once again, blood work will tell you that. You can have inklings of, hey, I'm losing my hair, I'm breaking out a lot, and you kind of know your DHT levels are high. I see that with teenagers all the time. And they could just take a little testolyze and, man, all of a sudden they're not breaking out. I have, 14-year-old, 15-year-old girls that are taking testolyze and they're like, wow, it cured my acne. Because they can tell that they have something going on because they're breaking out. But for, a person that's older, go for blood work. Check those levels out, see what you got, and then you can make an informed decision.
Second question, again, from the Dave Palumbo Experience app. And again, sometimes, I guess if I mispronounce Melanotan? Is it Melanotan?
Melanotan. Yeah,
Melanotan, right. Just in terms of if you could go give a walkthrough, I'm not sure really if you've discussed this on this platform, at least timing, dosages, and sides.
Right. Melanotan is a really cool peptide because it actually tells your body to produce melanin, and it makes you get a tan artificially without even having to go in the sun. Now, if you combine it with going in the sun, you'll get a tan even faster. But for people maybe who have, worry about skin cancer and stuff like that, I used it like the second half of my career, I guess, just to get a really good tan. And it actually works too good. You got to be careful because if you get so dark, you can actually turn like purplish, and then, because what happens is it tans everything, including your lips, your underarms, and everything like that. So you have to be careful that you don't do too much of it. But I always tell people less is better with it. It might take longer to get the tan if you do less, but you will get the tan. And once you get the tan that you like and the coloration that you like, you can maintain it with a shot once a week. The problem is if you take too much of it, it can make you feel a little nauseous, and it makes it hard to eat sometimes because I know guys just take too much of it. I always tell people I think it comes in 10 milligrams now most of the time, and you can mix it with like literally 5 mLs of water, and you can take like 2 mLs of water and take like 5 units on an insulin pen right before bed. I recommend taking it before bed because it makes you feel a little flushed at first, and then once again you could get a little nauseous. So if you take it before bed, you kind of feel weird for about 10 minutes and then it goes away, and then you wake up and usually you feel good. If you take more than that, you will get tan faster, but you will feel nauseous, I'm telling you. It also has a little bit of a Viagra-like effect on the body, so you definitely have an increased erections from Melanotan. But once again, if you take too much of it, you feel crappy. So you don't want to, there's a fine line between taking the right amount and taking too much, and you might have to experiment to see where that is. But like I said, if you put 2 mLs of water into the powders, and most of them come about 10 milligrams, you could just seriously use 5 units right before bed. Within 2 to 3 weeks, you'll have the tan you want, I promise you. Don't do more than that. Once you get the tan, you can literally, like I said, take 1 shot a week and maintain that tan. Now, you might notice some like pigment spots on your arms. Like sometimes you might get a beauty mark and you're like, I never had that there before. Well, the truth is you probably had it. It was probably very light and it just darkened it because it darkens everything. So the good thing is that when you stop taking it, those pigment spots will go away and they will disappear. It's just a lot of people have light pigment spots on their arms and legs. They don't even know about it. And then when they take the Melanotan and it darkens, all of a sudden they come out. So don't freak out if that happens.
So again, those 2 questions from the Dave Palumbo Experience app available wherever you get your apps from Google Play or the Apple Store. Let's go to our Instagram questions. Again, if you're not already following us there on Instagram, the handle is official_RX Muscle. If you're watching us for the first time here on YouTube, hit the subscribe button below, hit the notification bell. You're not going to miss any of our show segments or updates. If you like what you're watching, hit the like button, comment below. That helps. And as always, we appreciate all your support. Dave, we're going to address the gigantic elephant in the room. And this question, which a lot of people have, which stemmed off yesterday's After Hours episode. If you didn't see it, it's a live episode. It's sort of a culmination of what has been building up for the last couple of weeks. Big Robb. Big Robb's been on the show for now, I want to say 2.5 months. Many questions as far as his role in the show, what he brings to the show. And then a couple of weeks ago, Lee Priest, was it last week or 2 weeks ago? Either way, Lee Priest called Robb out for some messages that he had, or something that he had said to him, whatever, in private messages. Yeah, there was questions about when that was, if it was recent, if it was a long time, but nonetheless, came Cassidy Campbell and John Bravo came out of the waterwork because they had their own claims about Big Robb. So we figured, you know what? Let's bring about the RX Royal Rumble. Let's get them all in the show. Let's clear the air, and then, if possible, squash whatever differences there are and see if we can make some peace. And this is exactly what we had yesterday. The show was essentially Howard Stern, Jerry Springer, and WWE all mixed into one. It was a live episode. It was hilarious. It may have given you a headache if you have never seen these characters.
I still have a headache from
worth the watch. Yeah, and I'm sure Dave.
I think it got me sick, actually, to be honest with you.
But again,
and then I had Mr. G in studio too, which didn't help
Big
either.
Robb, because we do get this question every episode of After Hours. We even get questions on Ask Dave, and especially after yesterday's episode, people are wondering your defense of Big Robb. Why keep him on the show? What do you feel like he brings to the show? And then yesterday, in light of him being voted pretty significantly for a 1-month suspension from the show, why would you defend having him continue to be on the show without suspension of any sort?
Yeah. The great thing is that my vote counts for 1 million votes. So at the end of the day, I decide who's on the show and who's not on the show. It's not a democracy here, unfortunately, for everyone involved. But I like Robb. I think that he's very loyal to me. You know, until he proves otherwise. You know, I think that he had some immaturity early on in his social media career, as you might say, and I think he made some bad decisions, and I've talked to him about it off camera. And, you know, he tried to apologize and make peace with whatever he did. I mean, some of the stuff was almost unforgivable, but, you know, he wears his emotions on his sleeve, and look, we all have made bad decisions. You know, how many people in our industry have gone to jail and done stupid stuff, myself included? And you know what? Everyone deserves to be forgiven. Now, if you continue to do the same thing over and over again, you know, then obviously we boot you. So Robb is here until he proves otherwise. So far, he's been loyal, and he's, you know, you might not think he contributes anything, but I have a certain chemistry of the show, and I put together certain characters and people and situations, and I feel that he has a role in that. And whether it be the guy who we break his balls a little bit, or, you know, he shows us some of the crazy stuff he does, or, you know, just gives us his goofy, you know, I guess, opinions on stuff, that's fine, because as long as he's loyal to the show and to the people on the show, then I'm okay with that. And so he has not shown me, at least proven to me, that he's done anything wrong, and so I'm going to give him a chance, and I think that everyone else should as well, because, you know, everyone deserves it. He's a positive contributor, and, you know, I've had a lot of people on the show over the years, you know, a lot of what we call whack packers. They've come and they've gone. Some people have gone on to better things, and some people have disappeared into the woodwork, you know, because they were lunatics. But the bottom line is I give everyone a chance. And so he's got a chance until he blows it. He hasn't. And once again, off camera, him and I have a good, you know, friendship, I think. And so I'm going to give him a chance. You know, Johnny Bravo was great on the show. Cassie was great. And a lot of people have asked me to have Johnny Bravo on the show on a more regular basis. And we're talking with him with that, and so we might see him on the show because he does have a lot to contribute. He's funny, and, you know, it's all about chemistry. You know, if we can increase the chemistry and bring, you know, laughs to you guys, it's an escape. The After Hours show is an escape. We talk about bodybuilding topics, we talk about life, but at the end of the day, it helps us all just kind of forget our problems and just goof on each other. And so that, to me, is almost like therapy. I know Jimmy the Bull feels it's therapy for him too, because he gets to vent all his frustrations, but that's the way it runs. That's the show. It is like a Howard Stern show in a sense, only bodybuilding related. And, you know, it's constantly changing. And I'm always trying to throw different scenarios at that show, because if you do the same thing every week, it gets boring. So, you know, if you look at the topics we've done over the last, you know, how many years we've been doing the show, it's always something different every week.
Let's go to Hardcore Dan. Do you think all plates are equal weight? It's a good question, because some 45 plates feel heavier than others. Have you experienced this?
Yeah, you know, I don't know if it's still there, but Steve Weinberg at Bev Francis Powerhouse Gym there had these plates for a while. I don't know if he still has them, because obviously I'm not in New York anymore. They looked smaller than a 45, but they were really dense, and they were absolutely weighed more than 45 pounds. If you could lift, you know, if you could squat or bench press 405 with those plates, it had to be at least 30, 40 pounds heavier. I'm telling you, those plates. And, you know, unless you weigh them, there's no way to really prove it or verify it. But, you know, who cares? It's what your body feels. People are so preoccupied with how much weight they lift. Unless you're a power lifter or you're doing something for like strongman, who cares? If you're a bodybuilder, you go to the gym, you work the muscle. If the muscle feels like it's fatigued and it's being exhausted and it's being pushed to the limit, then you did your job. So who cares what the plates weigh?
Let's go to Live for Pump. During off season, could a protein shake with egg whites, cream of rice or baby rice, and peanut butter take the place of a meal?
Yeah, I used to do a lot. I used to do a lot of whole eggs with oatmeal and like whey protein in there, and I put apple juice in there. And I used to pour everything in the kitchen sink in there. I've told you guys about some of these shakes. I would literally fill up a blender. If you put 12 eggs in a blender, and you put like a cup of oatmeal and a cup of apple juice and like a Metrix packet, the blender will fill up. You can't even put the top on it. The blender will go right to the top, and as it's spinning, it actually looks like cement being mixed in a cement truck. And I would do that until it was all frothy, and then I would just basically take the whole blender and I would just gulp it down. And it's basically you're eating a food meal, only blended. There is some whey protein in there too, but it's the whole eggs and the oatmeal. And I would do 2 of those a day. And sometimes, I would throw them up because it was so much volume that I was swallowing. But it's definitely an absolute trick to get down extra food if you can do it. The only thing about oatmeal, or even cream of rice for that matter, if you don't cook it and you put it in the blender, you'll absorb it still, but it's a little abrasive on the way out because it's because it's dry. So it has sometimes you can get some anal bleeding if you do too many of them. But aside from that, I found that I assimilated the stuff really well. It wasn't like, sometimes you take in too much stuff and you just like poop it right out. I wasn't over going to the bathroom. So I was definitely benefiting from, and I was putting on weight from it. It was definitely a good technique to use. Not everyone can do it because a lot of people have trouble swallowing that kind of volume. Even though it is a liquid, it's a sludgy liquid. Food is not like a shake. You can put 60 grams or 70 grams of whey isolate into this much water, 4 ounces of water, and mix it around and gulp it down. You start putting oatmeal and egg whites or whole eggs, I was using 12 whole eggs, into a blender, it gets thick. And, it's hard to swallow that if you don't have if you can't open your mouth up and just let the stuff go down. If you try to sip it and drink it like it's like a Long Island iced tea, you're through. You'll never get it down. It'll take you 6 hours to drink the thing. You got to just open up and guzzle down. Sid's horrified by this.
Let's go to another diet-related questions from Lag No Excuses. If all carbs are, quote, the same, why don't you see that, or why we get a lot of translate questions, so bear with us.
Okay.
Why don't you see that much of bread, bagels, pasta in quote unquote clean off-season diets?
I don't believe that all carbs are equal. So I don't agree with that statement. So I think that's the number. that's a problem right there. I do use bagels in the off season for myself because I had a really fast metabolism. But some people just, if you give them a lot of bagels and sugary stuff, they get fat. And who wants to get fat? The goal is not to put on body fat. It's not just to eat calories. It's to put muscle on. So if you're a guy who can gain weight relatively easy, but you have to watch that you don't get fat. You want to eat a leaner type diet with better quality carbohydrates, whether it be oatmeal or brown or white rice, or even jasmine rice I like a lot. You can use, usually for people who get fat easily, I try to stay away from pastas. But for guys with fast metabolisms, I used to eat a lot of high protein pasta, mixed in there just to kind of vary it up a little bit. I would put some olive oil or macadamia nut oil on it, and I would put some cheese, Parmesan cheese, just to help get it down. It's tough to eat a lot, to eat a lot of food. You got to come up with creative ways of doing it. But the problem is that some people do get fat, so you don't want to be eating sugared cereals, which I know a lot of guys try to do and think that's a good way to gain weight. It's not. It's just all sugar. You're going to get fat from it if you have a slow metabolism. So you have to kind of assess what the person's metabolism is first, and then you can kind of, figure out what you want to give them. Likewise, I would rather give someone a burger and fries, rather than just like donuts or ice cream, you know what I mean, to help add extra calories. I just think that's crappy calories, and it's not going to build muscle or help repair muscle well. So once again, if you have a fast metabolism, you got to think of ways to increase the density of the foods you eat without having to make an enormous amount of volume. And the answer to that question is not to be eating cookies and junk food, because you're just going to feel terrible on that. And when you start eating junk food, you don't want to eat the good food anymore. Try to eat a chicken breast, after having a fried piece of chicken. Ask Lee Priest on that. You just can't do it. So it's almost like you have to keep the food cleaner if you want to be able to eat the volume you need, 6, 7, 8 meals a day to get, to actually build muscle. If you're eating junk food during the day, you're not going to have the taste for the good quality, cleaner foods, and you're not going to be able to get enough volume down.
Good, Mr. Moore. How much glutamine should the average gym rat take on very low dose of TRT? 0.7 mil a week, 66 years old, been training for over 40 years.
Glutamine doesn't really do anything in terms of building and repairing muscle. I hate to tell people. And our bodies make a lot of glutamine already. So as long as you're eating enough protein, your body's going to make plenty of glutamine. Taking excessive amounts of glutamine is going to do nothing for building and repairing muscle. What it might do is if you have a weak digestive system, in other words, some people have colitis, or they have, ulcers in their or breaks in their, what we call leaky gut syndrome. That seems to help the the small intestine and the colon. Glutamine is something that the intestinal cells will take out of the, when you orally ingest it, and will use it to help repair the lining of your intestinal tract. But other than that, it's not going to really do anything for muscle gains, because most of the glutamine never makes it to the bloodstream. Matter of fact, if you take in too much glutamine, Scott Connolly said this years ago, you can actually cause insulin release, and you can actually, sabotage your weight loss. It could actually, because a lot of that glutamine can actually turn to glucose. So you don't really want to overdo glutamine. It's not one of these, I always say there's essential stuff you should be using, and then there's luxury stuff. I don't even think it's a luxury thing to use. I think glutamine is just a waste of money. And like I said, unless you have an intestinal tract that is compromised in some way and that you're using it for that purpose, don't waste your money on glutamine.
There are a lot of philosophical questions here. This one from Bilal Hamide. If you were a bodybuilder going up the ranks or on a budget, would you prioritize financing stuff like personal objects, furniture for your house, or would you rather, he says specifically PEDs, but I'll just add in all the bodybuilding expenses required to make it up the ranks. How do you strike that balance between life and bodybuilding?
See, when I was bodybuilding, I was young. I was in my 20s and I stopped in my early 30s, around 34. So I didn't have kids. I didn't really have, anything that required me, spending money on other things. So everything I spent was really bodybuilding related. So if I needed, growth hormone, or if I needed chicken breasts, or if I needed, to go to a bodybuilding show, that was what I prioritized. Now, I wouldn't buy, I certainly wouldn't go out and waste my money on a car if I didn't have enough money to buy the supplements that I needed and the drugs that I needed for my competition, because that was the most important thing to me. I wanted to be the best bodybuilder that I could be. I didn't know how far I can go in bodybuilding, but I didn't want to handicap myself and say, oh, you know what, I could have gone farther had I had this accessible to me or that accessible to me, and instead I had bought, this couch for my living room that I really didn't even need. Who cares, So yeah, if you're really, really, focused on being the best bodybuilder you can be, you should prioritize that. Now, if you happen to have a family because you had a family early on in your life and you have kids, and they come first, unfortunately, and that's where the balance has to, you can't be selfish on your kids. So you know what? Sorry, I can't buy you that backpack for school, or I can't buy you those new shirts because I got to go buy growth hormone. That's irresponsible, So that's why I recommend that when people get into bodybuilding, they really try to either get in early before you've had a family, or get in, if you're in later, I know a lot of masters guys that, they've already had their kids, they have money, they have a good job, the money's not an issue. They can prioritize, they can spend money on bodybuilding and on their family. So, it's always a personal decision, where you want to go with it. I had the mindset that I wanted to go all the way as far as I could. And so there was no compromising on what I needed or what I would use and what I would spend my money on for bodybuilding purposes.
Okay, 2-3 more questions. Bodybuilding and wrestling. Is there a reason why you suggest taking fiberlyze separate to omegalyze, separate to testolyze, and so on? Wouldn't it be easier to take them in the least amount of, quote, servings per day, or do they not mix well together?
You could take all your vitamins together. You could take, your omegalyze, V-mineralize, and even if you don't use mine, you can use, if you're using a different brand, whatever, that's fine. you could take all that together, but I wouldn't mix fats with fiber because they theoretically could bind the fats. You know, the fiber is like a fat binding type of thing. It probably doesn't matter. I've swallowed a handful of pills and taken a fiberlyze shake and gone to bed before. I'm not gonna lie, you know, but it's usually a good idea if you can separate the vitamin ingestion with the fiberlyze, you know, shake. What I usually do is I have like my breakfast. I'll take my first serving of my vitamins. Then usually like 2 hours later, I'll have my first fiberlyze shake. Then later in the day after, I'll have like it's not usually dinner. It's usually like one of my like my 4 o'clock meal. I'll have my second serving of vitamins, and then before bed I'll have fiberlyze. So that's just how I do it. If for 1 or 2 days, if you're traveling and you had to do everything all in one shot, it's probably not a big deal. But that's just how I do it.
Let's get to the one that might generate the most buzz out of this show. It's a topic that you have touched on in the past, but it is being talked about a lot on other channels, bodybuilding, and I guess, corollary to bodybuilding. It's from our friend Dedgwick, Turkesterone. Your thoughts on Turkesterone, for those who have never heard about it or don't know much about it, if you want to give a walkthrough, your thoughts, worth it for a bodybuilder?
Yeah, I'm not going to even talk about it. I did a video on it already. You can look up the video that I did on it probably a couple of years back. And Derek over there at More Plates, More Dates, he had a nervous breakdown after I did this thing because I just felt like it was a waste of money. And you know what? That's just my personal decision, my personal opinion. Do the research yourself. I mean, if it worked that well, everyone would be using it and getting great results from it. I'll leave it at that. Okay.
Let's get to one more question from Nicola Gagula. In a scenario where you are the young bodybuilder today, in your 20s today, and you look at the landscape of coaches that are out there right now, who would you pick to be your coach and why?
You know, I always tell people you have to find a coach that resonates with you. Like I'm the kind of guy that needs my questions answered. I want to know why you're telling me to do things. And why, we're going to change this or that, or why you have me on this many milligrams of this or that. And I need a coach who can answer those questions. So for me, I would need someone like myself, because a lot of coaches they can tell you what to take, okay, and they might be right, but a lot of times they can't explain why. And maybe they just don't know. And maybe they just, by, the fact that they've just done it so many times, that just seems to work with them. But that wouldn't cut it for me. That's as an athlete, I'm a question asker. I did it in school. I was always the guy raising his hand asking a question because I wanted to know why. And I think it's good. I think if a coach can't answer why you're doing something, that you should run for the hills, because if they can't, then they don't really know why they're telling you to do things. And that's why things can get dangerous, and that's when people can have problems, especially related to diuretics, toward the end, and fluid depletion and carving up and insulin and stuff like that. That stuff gets dangerous if the person doesn't know what they're doing, if they're just kind of following some protocol that they copied off the internet. Whether it works 9 times out of 10, what about the 1 time out of 10 that it doesn't work and the person dies or, winds up in the hospital? So to me, I want a coach that's going to answer my questions. So if I was in the landscape now with social media and all the coaches out there, I would probably go to a person like myself. However, there are other people out there that don't really care about why. They just need more personalized attention. In other words, they need someone who's going to almost be a psychologist to them, that's going to constantly be, checking up on them. And there's plenty of coaches out there that do that. So you have to find the coach that works for your personality. And I think that's important. And that's why I always tell people, I say, don't worry about this guy's coaching and this guy's coaching that many people. There's so many people out there that need coaches. There's not enough coaches, believe me. And when I teach my Secrets to Becoming a Diet Guru course, people might say, well, why are you teaching all these secrets to these people? That's competition for you. I said, no, it's not. I said, because the people who want to work with me are going to work with me anyway. That's because they feel good working with me. And the people who might resonate better with someone else are going to work with someone else. I at least want to put it out there so that people know what they're telling their clients and they know the science of what's going on. That's what's really the most important, because it can get very dangerous if not. And so there is a way to quantify what you're doing, and that's what my course does. It quantifies how to write diets, how to write supplement stacks, how to put drug cycles together, and it explains why you're doing what you're doing. Same thing with diuretics and pre-contest, post-cycle therapy, all those type of things, detoxification. And so these are important things that you should know as a coach, okay? What kind of coach you are is really what your personality is and how you define that. But that's something that you can decide for yourself. But as far as if you're out there and you're young and you're looking for a coach, say, what is the most important thing to me? Is it knowledge? Then I got to go to a person like Dave Palumbo. Is it, do I need to be, someone there holding my hand because I'm very insecure? Then you got to go to another person who does that. And that's just the way it goes. And there's, like I said, there's plenty of coaches out there that you can find that will work for your personality.
That's going to do for this episode of Ask Dave. Reminder, right now on the channel, all new episodes of the After Hours podcast, yesterday's explosive live episode of After Hours, and then, of course, Sunday night's live episode of Heavy Muscle Radio. If you haven't already subscribed, again, Sunday night Heavy Muscle Radio is generally going to be John Romano with Dave, Lee Priest, Chris Aceto, and then we generally have, a rotating, stable of guests, but it's a great show. And again, if you're subscribed, if you have that notification bell on, you're going to get notifications as soon as we go live for that. Or yesterday we went live for After Hours. We'll be doing a lot more of that. We get your user feedback, your interaction. It's a lot of fun. So subscribe below, hit the notification bell. We'll see you next week.